Thanks, Steve. Ladies and gentlemen, it's a great pleasure to be here this evening to talk to you a little bit more about our company, TFS Limited. Who is TFS? Well, simply put, we are the world's largest grower and manager of sustainable Indian sandalwood plantations. As Steve said, we're based in Perth and have been listed on the ASX since 2004, and we typically raise our capital via both retail and institutional investors. As I'm sure many of you will be aware, almost all our entire peer group in agribusiness sector has fallen away in recent years for a variety of reasons. Now, I won't go into those reasons tonight. In fact, over the course of my presentation, what I'd much prefer to do is talk to you a little bit more about exactly why it is TFS is still around. The next key milestone date for our company comes in late 2013, when we commence the commercial harvest of our very first plantation. It's at that time that we expect that we'll be able to show the market the proof of concept that TFS has been working towards for the last 15 years. At TFS, we operate a fully integrated model based on one core product, Indian sandalwood. Our overriding philosophy is captured in what we refer to as the soil to oil approach. This begins when we source land for plantations, using our own balance sheet invariably to acquire that land. It flows through to the cultivation of seedlings in our nursery at Kununurra, continues with the establishment and ongoing management of our plantations right through to harvest. We then take the wood to processing at our Mount Romance facility in Albany, and finally via the distribution of our end products to the various users around the world. By controlling the entirety of the value chain, we're able to maximise investment performance whilst properly managing downside risk. Sorry, I'll push the wrong button there. TFS operates a lean and flat management structure based around four key operating divisions. To explain the simple flow of our business, funds are raised by my financial products team from both retail and institutional investors. Those funds, as well as our own, are used by our operations team to establish and manage plantations, with end products being distributed to the market by our global retail and products division. We employ a permanent workforce of around 130, the majority at our plantations and processing plant, with our workforce growing by over 300 in the key planting and pruning months via the employment of large numbers of casual staff. Indian sandalwood requires subtropical conditions to grow, and the ideal conditions are found in Northern Australia. The majority of our 6,500 hectares of established plantations are in and around Kununurra in northern Western Australia, taking advantage of the optimal growing conditions supported by the Ord River irrigation area. In recent years, we've expanded our operations with new plantations in the Northern Territory and Queensland, and the majority of our new plantings over the next 2 to 3 years will be in these locations. Indian sandalwood is a difficult tree to grow. We're particularly proud, therefore, of the intellectual property that we've developed over the past 15 years, which is reflected in survival rates which have grown from around 30% in our earliest plantings to consistently above 90% today. There are three main factors behind the improved survival rates we are now achieving. First, a much more robust site and soil selection policy that continues to this day. Much more education as to the most appropriate host tree types. And lastly, the introduction of drip irrigation in 2007. Replacing previous flood irrigation practices, which has allowed a much more targeted and efficient use of water. Any potential competitor to TFS must overcome significant barriers to entry to replicate anything like the scale and depth of our operations. It would take an investment of between 15 to 20 years and many hundreds of millions of dollars to get even close to replicating our market position. And that assumes an ability to access sandalwood seeds, which, with the banning of exports by the Indian government and the control of almost all the remaining stock in Australia with TFS, is almost impossible to achieve. Overseas, high levels of sovereign and security risk restrict the potential for the development of a sustainable Indian sandalwood plantation industry in climates where the trees can grow. So what is this thing called Indian sandalwood? What are its supply and demand dynamics, and what are its uses? Indian sandalwood is one of the world's oldest traded commodities and one of the world's most valuable tropical timbers. The value of Indian sandalwood lies in its heartwood, with significant value in both its natural state and the oil that can be distilled from it. Today, Indian sandalwood heartwood is fetching in the order of $150 to $200 per kilogram in the Chinese market, albeit in relatively small quantities, whilst oil is currently achieving upwards of $4,000 a kilogram in its core markets in the US and Europe. Multiple markets exist for the two main byproducts of the Indian sandalwood tree. Its oil is used by many of the world's leading perfume houses as a binding agent in their prestige fragrances, with TFS having entered into off-take agreements with a number of leading perfumeries. The oil is increasingly used in a variety of skin treatments being developed by the US pharmaceutical sector. Indeed, we have high hopes for our JV with US pharmaceutical firm Viroxis, which, following the success of recent clinical trials, has released an over-the-counter acne treatment kit under the Santallia brand. Sandalwood has deep and significant cultural and religious resonance in India, where it's used as incense and in cremation ceremonies, and also in a huge range of pan masala products. But perhaps its strongest demand, as I mentioned earlier, is out of China, where we're seeing demand for heartwood for manufacturing of handicrafts, religious icons, furniture and other decorative, high-value decorative items, pushing price further than we've ever seen before. Concurrent with strong demand has been a period of falling supply, characterised by a sharp decline in the Indian government's official harvest, the continuing over-harvesting of native stands, and a lack of regulation sustainable practices. Continued strong demand, combined with supply pressures, will only have one outcome, and that's rising prices. Since 1990, the spot price for Indian sandalwood has risen from approximately $5,000 per tonne US to over $100,000 per tonne US. Independent expectations are continued real growth over the next decade, with the demand that's being driven by competing oil users and an increasingly large and affluent middle class in India and China expected to continue to outstrip the rate at which new supply can be brought to the market. So how can the smart investor benefit from this story? Over the past 15 years, more than 3,000 individual investors have invested in excess of $235 million in TFS's annual sandalwood projects. The product's investment returns are supplemented by a 100% tax deductibility of all funds invested, as confirmed by the ATO product ruling. Investors can participate in a TFS plantation for a minimum $7,425 for a single lot, equating to 1/12 of a hectare, and beyond that can actively manage their investment by deciding to either pay or defer their annual management fee and lot rental. Sandalwood trees typically take 14 to 16 years to mature prior to harvest, so we offer growers the ability to buy or sell more mature trees on the secondary market to enable them to more actively manage their cash flows and investment returns. Each TFS project is independently assessed, with leading investment research house Advisor Edge rating our 2013 product 4.25 stars out of 5, classifying the product as superior and suitable for inclusion on most APLs. In their assessment of potential returns, Advisor Edge has forecast IRRs of 10.8 to 12%, depending on the fee payment option selected by the investor. Advisor Edge has gone on to state there is significantly more upside than downside risk potential, and based on a comparison of some of the most crucial investment performance variables to their current and historical levels, it would appear that view is well formed. Ladies and gentlemen, at TFS we have great pride and confidence in our company and our 2013 investment offering. At its core, the 2013 TFS Sandalwood project is designed to make money. It enables direct investment in a commodity and industry that is showing extremely favourable demand-supply fundamentals and should continue to do so for the foreseeable future. It is a cost-effective investment. It is a cost-effective investment due to the tax deductions that are available, and it can be used strategically by the smart investor to minimise the capital gains tax liability, address Division 7A issues, reduce personal or non-deductible debt, or diversify a self-managed super fund or general investment portfolio in many ways, in ways that few other investments can. Investors in TFS and its financial products cover an incredibly wide range of the investment community, from mums and dads right through to the world's largest sovereign wealth fund. And whilst each has their own specific reason for investing, each at their core believes in the story of Indian sandalwood and the ability of TFS to manage its plantations to maximise the investor's ability to capitalise on the opportunity. Thank you once again for your time this evening and the opportunity to speak to you. Along with my colleague Dylan Greenway, we'd be delighted to talk with you further after the presentations tonight to answer any queries you might have about TFS, Indian sandalwood or our 2013 investment opportunity. Thank you very much.